What's up, everybody? Here is the May market update. Watch this. All right, guys, another month down, which means we are out into another month market update. But we can only give you the data till the end of April, so let's break it down. This is going to be for Anchorage and the Mat-Su Valley, so Wasilla, Palmer, and obviously, let's get into it. So, I'm sure you guys have seen the market change. Interest rates are starting to go up pretty quick, So what's the impact of that going to look like on our market? And I've got data directly from our MLS on the market changes that we're starting to see, and the effects of the market, as we are, listing properties, putting properties under contract, and then those properties are being sold. So, of course, this data is going to change over time every month. I'm going to keep doing these every single month, so that way you guys have an awesome data up to the month, because our MLS reports it at the beginning of the month from the previous month. So let's get into Anchorage, Eagle River, basically the municipality of Anchorage. So our sold an average list price was roughly $376-ish to up, in March up to $411 in April. And then the average sales price for just all of the residential homes in Anchorage went from $378 to $413. So a little bit of a jump. Our list to sales ratio, like I covered in my last video, we were selling substantially more inventory than what we were putting on market. So, our typical floating inventory kept decreasing, which is why we're seeing such a competitive market, which is why we're almost every single property was getting multiple offers on it, because we just didn't have really hardly any inventory at all for buyers to buy. And of course, with the interest rates rising, people were really hungry to get into something so that way they can lock the rate in and obviously not be in the current rates we are now. So what's our average days on market look like? New listings versus sold listings, that has all changed. So as of March, our average days on market was 39 days. And then in April, it shifted to 27. So obviously a pretty substantial drop there. But in April, we did have quite a bit more listings come on market of almost 100. And if you look at the March data to sold or new inventory to sold inventory, it was 788 to 501 for sold listings, and then we went up to 860 to 524. So the good news is our new listings went up, and then our sold listings stayed somewhat close to the same. We did increase about 23 sold listings, so we were getting some more listings than what we were starting to sell, which is a good thing. Now, here we go again to some more data. We talk about healthy inventory in the market at, we want roughly 6 months of inventory for a normal neutral market, where buyers and sellers are usually pretty negotiable, right? And things last on market, so it gives you time to look, time to see. Things aren't pending in 24, 48 hours, 12 minutes, sometimes. I mean, it's a little nutsos. But, so we want to see roughly 6 months of inventory for a standard healthy market. So as of March, March data that was available in April, it was roughly 1.4 months of inventory. But in April, that number went up to almost 1.6 at about 1.57 months of inventory. So as we move, past spring break towards schools getting out, as some warmer weather because we're here in Alaska, people really don't want to move in the winter. So, as we're getting to spring break, kids are coming out of school, we're getting warmer weather. We always see more inventory hit the market. So, and this is what the data is obviously indicating, is our inventory starting to go up, almost 100 additional listings between the previous month. And then, of course, our months of inventory on market also went up as well. So how does this compare to 2020, 2021? Well, our months of inventory in May of 2020 was 4.5 months of inventory. So substantially more. April of 2021, we were still at 1.75, so still a pretty decent seller's market. But we were also, about 10 to 15 days more of inventory this time last year. So we did have a pretty heavy seller's market in 2021. It got worse. But as interest rates rise, and we start to move into summer, I suspect that we'll start to see the line push a little bit from a substantial seller's market. It will remain a seller's market, I think, for a bit, but I think we're going to see inventory stay on a little bit longer. Obviously, interest rates affects buyers' ability to purchase. And so, I think, people are going to start taking a little bit look. We will, I think, start to see a competitive market shift just a little bit. It's still going to be competitive because we're still inventory low, but I could see the average days on market and months of inventory start to increase, which is good news for buyers. Obviously, interest rates aren't the best news, but they're still hovering around 5 to 6%, depending on a bunch of different factors, such as loan programs, your ability to qualify, credit scores, debt to income. There's a whole bunch of factors. Obviously, you want to talk to a lender to get right where your rate is going to be, and different loan programs affect that as well. So if you're looking for an accurate rate, it's independent of each individual person, right? And so talk to your lender. Now, let's get into the Mat-Su borough. So Wasilla, Palmer, things out there are just, they're also a substantial seller's market. They do have a lot more new construction out there. They just have more land. There's also a bunch of different factors into why they have so much new construction. Part of it is, bureaucratically, there's, the Mat-Su borough, Wasilla, Palmer tend to have a little not as strict requirements for zoning, planning, permitting, and that kind of stuff compared to the community of Anchorage. And so we're seeing a lot more new construction out there. It's also a spot a lot of people are moving to in the last few years. So there's the demand for new construction out there. And so obviously their inventory is going to be a little bit higher. So let's break down Wasilla, Palmer. So the number of listings sold versus number of listings of new listings. So they had 1.2 months of inventory in the month of March, and as of the end of last month in April, they jumped up to 1.57. So a substantial number, increase in homes coming on market, and so that inventory grew. In March, they had 271 new listings and sold 175 of them. And then in April, they brought on 305 new listings and only sold 183. So just a decent change there, which obviously brought up that inventory. Now in May of 2020, they were sitting at 2.53 months of inventory. It's a little bit smaller market than Anchorage, so they won't have as much inventory. And they do have a lot more new construction out there as well. So let's break down the average sales prices here of kind of where they were to where they are now. We are seeing a pretty substantial increase in home prices in the valley, so Mat-Su Valley, so Palmer, Wasilla. And I'll give you an example of that. So in April and May of 2020, so just 2 years ago, the average sales price was $299,000. It even dropped a little bit in May and June, down to 290, 280-ish. And then right now we're at about $400,000 for average sales price. And once again, they are also still selling a lot of their inventory compared to sales. So now let's get to our days on market, our sold volume, and then like average sales price. Like I was saying, average sales price, they're hovering pretty close to 400,000. Their days on market between March and April actually decreased, just like Anchorage. So they were at 38 average days on market in March. By the end of April, we're at 33. Just like Anchorage, interest rates are going to affect that. I think as inventory comes on plus rates, I think we're going to see more days on market. Just, we'll obviously see what the data polls come in June. But that's kind of what we're starting to see around. We're not seeing as much multiple offers on things now that interest rates are above 5%. And, so that's starting to affect things. As far as listings go, we're still, like I said, Mat-Su Valley and Palmer still inventory short. The Feds did announce rate hikes again. They actually did one yesterday, so we're going to see interest rates continue to rise. I wouldn't be surprised if we hit 7 to 8% by end of the year. Obviously, that's going to affect a lot of buyer confidence as well as their ability to purchase. Right, it's a pretty decent hike in rates between, February, March of this year, hovering around the 3% mark. Now we're up to 5, pushing 6. So if we hit 7 or 8, we're talking potentially, up to a 5% rate increase just in 2022, which is really going to affect, an ability for a buyer, right, to, for their debt to income ratio with purchasing a home. And of course, with prices of homes rising, there's going to be a factor. So I can see the competition start to decrease. I can see days, like I said before, days on market increasing. And I think will help kind of reduce that competition amongst buyers. And I think that, you as a buyer will be a little bit easier to get into the home that you actually want versus just trying to get into a home, right? And get an offer accepted. So but like I said, home prices are continue to rise, and interest rates are obviously going to continue to rise as well. The factor with interest rates is, hey, even if you get in at 5, 6, 7%, if the rates do go down, you do have the ability to refinance to a lower rate later on. But most economists do think that rates are going to continue to rise. The Alaska economy is, I've got this question quite a bit, is what, Justin, where do you think the Alaska economy is going to go? What do you think houses are going to happen here? And we covered this on previous market updates and another episode on our YouTube channel if you guys want to take a look at it. But Alaska is very well insulated from the rest of the United States, and our market here doesn't exactly correlate with the market in the lower 48. So we are a little bit more independent in Alaska. Our housing market is very independent, and we obviously are really influenced by oil prices, how the state is doing as an economy, and a lot of that is really affected by, mineral production, oil production, natural gas production, all that kind of stuff. In 2008, we only saw like a 1.7% decrease in home prices, while the rest of the United States was obviously suffering way more, up to 50% in some markets. And then, of course, in 2015-16, when our oil was really, really low, right, and the state was having a really hard time, we had a recession here in Alaska while the rest of the United States was booming. We saw a 3.5% reduction in home prices during that time. So while the rest of the United States was seeing an increase in home prices. So, it would take a pretty large, either local economic, something locally or it's on the state level to really impact our housing market, or just a major population decrease would have to really take a major impact on our markets here, especially in South Central Alaska and all across Alaska. The good news is, if you go to alaskanomics.com, we'll put the link right down here. It is Northern Bank's head economic forecaster. Military funding is being really pushed into Alaska. We have billions of dollars being allocated here. Oil is at, just the other day, it was like $145 a barrel. So the Alaska economy, as far as natural resource production, all that stuff is booming, right? A lot of money is being flowed into Alaska between military and oil and gas exploration because of the price of, everything of oil is so high. So, and of course, we still have some of the best mines in fishing and of course, in the world. And tourism, we're going to have a record tourism year. So I know we were just down in Seward the other day, and they had, they were talking, they were going to have a record number of ships in Seward, like up 12 ships compared to their previous record, or 13 or something like that. I think we're slated for almost 400 cruise ships to come to Alaska. So we're going to have, we have, amazing oil prices, right? We have defense spending being pushed into Alaska, and we're having an awesome tourism growth this year, and I think we'll continue to grow. So as far as markets go, right, I think Alaska's doing really well. Our economy is going to keep producing well, and just realize that we are once again, we're pretty well established locally as a singular state and not so dependent upon the rest of the United States. And so that's my opinion. Anyways, hopefully you guys got a ton of value out of this. Once again, in June, we'll post another market update video as we get more MLS data. If obviously anything crazy happens between now and then, we'll post another video for you. But drop us a comment, drop us a subscribe, hit that subscribe button, and let us know what you want to see. We'll be happy to create whatever videos. So anyways, we'll catch you guys on the next one.